a Taoist Immortal, for example, is somebody who'd achieved this. And we also refer to this process, especially in the left-hand path and Luciferianism, it's often referred to as apotheosis, which is, the term literally means to become a god, the process of becoming a god. And so this is to become an entity or a force of nature in your own right. How can I be remade and be whole? What you do is you go through the process of Luciferian alchemy, for example, or you go through the alchemical process. And in the Novus Ordo Luciferi, we teach the process of Luciferian alchemy, and that involves that is a complete system of occultism, which involves doing that process of shadow work, for example, where different parts of ourselves are identified that have been fragmented off. You could refer to it as shamanic soul retrieval. There's some very similar work that's done within that kind of a realm, and some people refer to it as shadow work. There's different forms of shadow work, but shamanic soul retrieval is like that, where you identify an aspect of your own soul that has fragmented off, usually because of some sort of trauma that was experienced in the past, and your psyche, in order to protect itself, has created a workaround. So a trauma is essentially something that occurred that you didn't have the mental and emotional faculties to process at the time. And so your mind, in order to protect itself from this indigestible experience, you could say, it wraps it within a mental complex that allows us to kind of reject its existence or pretend it doesn't exist or suppress it in order to protect the conscious mind from madness, essentially, is what that is. And so it's a very delicate procedure that you have to be gentle with yourself. It's a process of healing where you can uncover those parts of yourself that were suppressed because of trauma, and that we've created these mental workarounds which take up a lot of energy, which take up a lot of life force to maintain, and it can be a drain on us. And if we have a lot of traumas, we can feel very low energy and get exhausted very easily. But if we can heal these parts of ourselves and we free up the energy that was used to maintain that workaround, that mental complex that allowed us to kind of separate ourselves from that part that couldn't be integrated or couldn't be processed in the moment. Now, a lot of these traumas happened to us when we were younger because we were immature and didn't have those developed mental and emotional faculties to handle it at the time. But years and years and years go by, you become an adult, you gain a level of maturity, and a lot of these traumas are things that you could now actually process and deal with, but we don't, because it's scary. It's, anytime you approach one of these traumas in your psyche, there is a fear response, there is a shame response, guilt, disgust. There's these very unpleasant feelings that are associated with these traumas that we are holding within ourselves, within our psyches, within our bodies. They manifest as muscle tension. And so if we can relax our bodies, it helps us release those mental complexes, and we can start to recognize and address and heal, and then integrate those different parts of ourselves that were fragmented off. And and Lucifer mentions Carl Jung. So he did a lot of work that was very alchemical, very Gnostic, and he did so under the terminology of psychology. And that he provided a lot of wonderful tools that ended up getting used by the mainstream, that were formerly very occult, so very esoteric concepts and procedures that would occur. He was able to word them in ways that were psychological, and then they became accessible to people who didn't necessarily believe in these more subtle aspects of existence. By referring to them as psychological terms, he created tools that people can utilize, and did quite a service to the world by doing so. And he was very alchemical and Gnostic in his thinking. He wrote a document called the Seven Sermons of the Dead, which is a deeply Gnostic text. He worked with dreams, heavily worked with dreams. He had this extremely vivid dream journal that he would draw art, and he would paint and create art pieces within his journal that were stunning. There's some really amazing artwork that he did in his dream journal, which is referred to as the Red Book, because it has such brilliant colors and really interesting and evocative pieces that he did. So yeah, Carl Jung was somebody who took a lot of esoteric and occult concepts and techniques and was able to kind of bring them to the masses.